There is a secret the elites have kept hidden for millennia, not in vaults or secret documents, but in the most effective way imaginable, by making you believe it doesn't exist. While you desperately search for your identity through courses, therapies, and self-help methods, paying fortunes to discover yourself, they've always known that the answer lies deep within your own soul. But here's the shocking truth: they don't hide this knowledge out of malice. They hide it because if you were to discover who you truly are, the entire system of control would collapse instantly. Imagine realizing you are naturally abundant while you struggle with scarcity. That you are eternally powerful while feeling weak and dependent. That you have direct access to universal wisdom while you beg for crumbs of knowledge. The forbidden technique you are about to learn isn't about acquiring something new, it's about remembering something your soul has always known. It's about peeling away the layers of conditioning that were carefully designed to keep you small, dependent, and easy to control. That's why it was banned, ridiculed, and buried beneath symbolic language that few can decode. Because once you master it, you no longer need intermediaries, gurus, or experts charging you a fortune for what you already possess for free. And that is the greatest threat to a system built on your ignorance. But let me warn you, what you're about to discover will hurt. It will hurt to realize how many years you wasted looking outside for what was always within. It will hurt to understand how you were manipulated into denying your own greatness. It will hurt to take full responsibility for the creation of your reality. But that pain is the price of freedom, and once you pay it, you will never be the same. The question is, do you have the courage to discover who you truly are, knowing there's no going back? There's a fundamental difference between learning something new and remembering something that has always been within you. Most people spend their entire lives accumulating information, techniques, and methods, believing that they're evolving. But the truth is, everything you truly need has existed in your soul since the moment you arrived here. The forbidden technique isn't about adding more knowledge to your mind, it's about removing the layers of conditioning that block you from accessing who you truly are. It's like a sculptor who doesn't create the statue, but simply removes the excess marble to reveal the masterpiece that was always there. Once you understand this, you realize you never needed teachers, courses, or complex methods. You only needed to remember. Think of a small child who, without ever studying physics, instinctively knows how to balance on a bicycle. She didn't learn the laws of gravity or calculate angles, she simply remembered something her essence already knew. In the same way, when a piece of music moves your soul, it's not because you learned to like it. It's because it awakened something that was already sleeping inside you. The forbidden technique works exactly like that. It doesn't teach, it awakens. It doesn't add, it reveals. That's why so many people report a feeling of, "I've always known this," when they encounter deep truths about themselves. They're not learning, they're remembering who they've always been. The traditional education system conditioned us to believe that we are blank pages waiting to be filled. But that's a carefully constructed illusion. Your soul came here whole, carrying all the wisdom you need to fulfill your purpose. The problem is that from an early age, you were taught to seek answers outside yourself. Teachers, books, experts, they all position themselves as the keepers of knowledge you supposedly didn't have. That's the first layer of conditioning that must be removed. When you realize you already carry everything within, you stop being a spiritual beggar and become a king reclaiming your kingdom. Remembering is a completely different process from learning. While learning requires effort, memorization, and repetition, remembering is natural and instant. It's like when you try to recall the name of a famous actor, you know it, but the information is temporarily inaccessible. Then suddenly, without forcing it, the name pops into your mind. The forbidden technique works like that. It creates the conditions for you to access information that has always been available in your soul. That's why it's so powerful and yet so simple. There's nothing to master, only something to remember. It's like recognizing the face of someone you knew in a past life. Once you begin to remember instead of learn, your entire perception of reality changes. You stop feeling small before the universe and begin to realize that you are a unique and powerful expression of universal consciousness. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. It's like a ray of light that, for a moment, forgot it was part of the sun. The forbidden technique is the process that allows the ray to remember its true nature. You don't need to become enlightened, you need to remember that you already are light. You don't need to find your purpose, you need to remember why you chose to be here. That shift in perspective is the first step to accessing powers you never imagined you had. Now you might be wondering, if everything is already inside me, why can't I access it? The answer lies in the layers of conditioning that were carefully built throughout your life. Every time you were taught to doubt your intuition, a layer was added. Every time you sought external approval instead of trusting your inner voice, another layer formed. The forbidden technique is the process of removing those layers, one by one, until you return to your original state of connection with your soul. And when that happens, you'll understand exactly why certain forces would rather you never discovered this truth. Imagine a world where every person knew exactly who they are, what their purpose is, and how to access their inner power, without needing anyone to validate or teach them. That world would be a nightmare for those who profit from your ignorance and dependence. The forbidden technique wasn't banned because it's dangerous for you, it was banned because it's lethal to entire systems built on your need for intermediaries. When you discover that you can access wisdom directly from your soul, you no longer need gurus, institutions, or experts charging fortunes to give you what you already possess. It's like discovering that your home has a natural spring while you've been paying a premium for bottled water. The water sellers don't want you to know about the well. Think about how many industries are built around your external search for answers. Universities that charge tens of thousands to teach you what you could recall for free. Therapists who prolong treatment when you could heal your soul directly. Religions that claim to be the only bridge between you and the divine, when in truth, you are a direct expression of universal consciousness. Coaches selling magic formulas for success, when your purpose is already encoded in your essence. This entire structure collapses when you realize the forbidden technique removes the need for intermediaries. That's why it was carefully erased from public knowledge and labeled as dangerous or delusional. The control system works by creating dependency. They convince you that you are incomplete, lacking, in constant need of improvement through products, services, and external validation. It's a brilliant vicious cycle. The more you search outside, the further you drift from your true source of power. The further you are from your soul, the more vulnerable you become to manipulation. The forbidden technique breaks that cycle so radically that it poses an existential threat to structures built on your ignorance of who you truly are. It's like discovering you're heir to a vast fortune while you've been begging for scraps. Those who profit from your artificial poverty will do anything to keep that information from you. When someone awakens through the forbidden technique, they become impossible to control by conventional means. Fear doesn't work anymore, because they understand their eternal nature. Greed has no effect, because they recognize abundance as their natural state. Promises of status don't seduce, because they already feel whole. It's like trying to threaten the ocean with a cup of water. That's why, throughout history, those who rediscovered and tried to teach this technique were persecuted, ridiculed, or had their teachings distorted. It's no coincidence that mystics like Rumi, Teresa of Avila, and Ramana Maharshi spoke of accessing inner truth, but those practices were later turned into hollow rituals or buried beneath symbolic language few can decipher. What's most fascinating is that the banning of the technique was so effective that most people don't even suspect it exists. They grow up believing that seeking outside is natural, that needing others for validation is normal, that feeling incomplete is just part of being human. This programming runs so deep that when someone even mentions the possibility of accessing wisdom directly from the soul, the average person reacts with skepticism or discomfort. It's like there's a mental block that prevents them from even considering the idea. That's the masterpiece of the control system, making you automatically reject the very thing that could set you free. They no longer need to hide the technique, they've programmed you to deny it yourself. But here's the irony, the more they try to hide it, the more obvious it becomes that something powerful is being protected. Why invest so much effort suppressing something that supposedly doesn't work? Why create so many distractions if there's nothing worth distracting from? The very existence of the ban is proof that the technique is real and transformative. It's like a treasure map written in code. The intensity of the concealment reveals the magnitude of what's being guarded. And when you realize this, one natural question arises: if they've gone to such lengths to bury it, what actually happens when you find it? The answer lies in the process of remembering, one that is as transformative as it is painful. Remembering is not a gentle process, as many imagine. It's more like a spiritual surgery, where each layer of conditioning removed brings pain, resistance, and at times, the terrifying sense that you're losing your mind. When you begin to remember who you truly are, the entire belief system that held up your false identity collapses simultaneously. It's like waking up from a vivid dream and realizing that everything you believed about yourself was a carefully crafted illusion. Your soul knows the truth, but your mind, so used to the lie, fights desperately to preserve the status quo. This inner conflict is inevitable and often brutal. There's no way to soften the experience. It's the price of freedom. Imagine living your whole life believing you were a beggar, asking for scraps and accepting humiliation as a natural part of existence. Then suddenly, you discover you're heir to a kingdom and your entire story of poverty was a lie. The relief of knowing the truth is accompanied by deep rage at the manipulation, shame for the choices made in ignorance, and terror at the responsibility now placed on your shoulders. That's exactly what the forbidden technique does. You recognize your true nature, but you also grieve the life you lived based on a lie. It's a rebirth that demands the symbolic death of everything you thought you were. That's why so many give up halfway through. The pain feels unbearable. The practical process begins with moments of absolute silence, where you stop consuming external information and turn your full attention inward. It's not meditation in the traditional sense, it's more like an archaeological excavation of your own soul. You need to create daily periods, preferably at dawn when the world is quiet, where you simply observe your thoughts without judgment. Gradually, you begin to distinguish between the voice of your conditioned mind and the whispers of your essence. The specific practice involves asking your soul direct questions. Who am I really? Why did I choose to be here? What is my true nature? And then waiting in receptive silence. The answers don't come as thoughts, they emerge as instantaneous knowing that you simply recognize as truth. The pain arises because every genuine insight into your true nature contradicts decades of programming. When you remember that you are, by nature, abundant, your entire story of scarcity becomes a painful joke. When you recall that you are eternally connected to the divine, all your moments of loneliness and abandonment are revealed as illusions. When you recognize that you are inherently powerful, your years of submission and victimhood become unbearable. It's like discovering you spent years in a prison whose door was never locked. The shame, rage, and sorrow that surface are directly proportional to how long you lived denying your true identity. But this pain is purifying. Every tear you shed washes away a layer of false conditioning. Clarity comes in waves, not all at once. At first, you have fleeting glimpses of truth, quickly smothered again by the conditioned mind. It's like flashes of lightning in a dark night. For a moment everything is clear, then it's dark again. But each flash leaves a mark, a growing certainty that something far greater is unfolding. With consistent practice, these moments of clarity become more frequent and lasting. You begin to live more from your essence and less from your constructed personality. It's a gradual process where you remember how to be who you truly are, like someone recovering their memory after an accident. The difference is that in this case, the accident was social conditioning that made you forget your true identity. But there is a point of no return in the process of remembering. Once you reach a certain level of lucidity about who you really are, it becomes impossible to return to your former unconscious state. It's like trying to believe in Santa Claus again as an adult. The knowledge has changed you forever. This irreversibility is both liberating and terrifying, because it means your entire life must now be rebuilt from this new awareness. You can no longer pretend to be small, a victim, or incomplete. You can no longer seek external approval or live to please others. The forbidden technique forces you to take full responsibility for the creation of your reality. And that level of absolute responsibility is what very few are truly willing to accept. When you finally awaken to who you truly are through the forbidden technique, you realize there is no undo button. It's like stepping out of a dark cave and looking directly into the sun. Your eyes adjust to the light, and you can no longer accept the darkness as reality. Your entire previous life becomes a theater play in which you were both actor and audience, unaware that you were performing. Now, conscious of the script, you can no longer play the roles of victim, of lack, or dependency with the same conviction. Your soul simply refuses to participate in the farce. This irreversibility is both a blessing and a curse, because it means you forever lost the innocence that once allowed you to live on autopilot. From now on, every choice is conscious, every action intentional. The first brutal consequence is existential loneliness. Once you free yourself from the matrix of collective beliefs, you realize that most people are still deeply asleep. Your conversations become shallow because you can no longer pretend that trivial problems matter. Your relationships shift because you no longer seek wholeness in another, you are already whole. Your goals change because ego-based ambitions lose all meaning. It's like waking up in a world where everyone speaks a language you no longer understand, or rather, a language you understand perfectly but has lost its meaning. You realize you were playing social games whose rules now seem absurd. The forbidden technique removes you from the crowd and places you in a category of your own, which can be extremely isolating. Absolute responsibility is perhaps the heaviest consequence of awakening. When you understand that your soul chose every experience, every relationship, every challenge as an opportunity for growth, you can no longer blame anyone for anything. Your parents, your ex-partners, your difficult bosses, they're all revealed as actors hired by your own consciousness to help you evolve. That painful betrayal? You attracted it to learn about self-worth. That financial loss? Your soul orchestrated it to teach you about true values. When this perception sets in, you realize you were the creator of your entire reality, including the parts you hated most. It's both empowering and terrifying, because it means you have no one left to blame for your problems, and no one else can solve them for you. Difficult decisions begin to arise in cascade. How can you stay in a job your soul deems meaningless? How can you maintain relationships based on masks when you can no longer wear your own? How can you continue participating in family traditions that now seem like hollow rituals? What do you say when people ask about your radical behavior shift? Every situation becomes a test between authenticity and social convenience. You must constantly choose between staying true to yourself or keeping peace with the external world. Often, these choices involve significant losses: jobs, relationships, social status. The forbidden technique forces you to prioritize your spiritual integrity over any material or societal gain. It's a high price that not everyone is willing to pay. Your perception of death changes completely, which transforms your relationship with life. When you remember your eternal nature, physical death loses the terror it once held over your decisions. This frees you to live authentically, but it also removes one of the primary motivators that keep most people in line: the fear of the end. You stop tolerating toxic relationships out of fear of being alone. You stop remaining in degrading situations out of fear of survival. You stop submitting to questionable authorities out of fear of consequences. This absence of fear is incredibly liberating, but it also places you in a space where you must find new motivations for your actions. If fear no longer drives you, what does? The answer lies in the understanding of your unique purpose, which only you can discover and fulfill. Perhaps the most profound consequence is the impossibility of living a small life again. When you know you are a unique expression of universal consciousness, you can no longer settle for mediocre goals or limited aspirations. Your soul demands that you express your full potential, that you use every gift you carry, that you fulfill your mission here completely. There are no more valid excuses for mediocrity. No more justifications for wasting time on the trivial. Each day becomes a choice between expansion, or betrayal of your own essence. This internal pressure can be overwhelming, especially when you haven't yet discovered your specific purpose. But one thing is certain, now that you know who you truly are, you must decide what to do with that knowledge, and that decision will define not only this life, but the eternal legacy of your soul. Now you know the truth, one that few ever discover in an entire lifetime. You understand why the forbidden technique was hidden, how the process of remembering works, and what the irreversible consequences of awakening truly are. But knowledge without action is nothing more than intellectual entertainment. The question your soul is asking right now is this: what will you do with this information? Will you keep it as an interesting curiosity, or will you have the courage to begin the process of remembering who you truly are? Because here's the raw and honest reality: you can keep living the small, safe, and predictable life the system designed for you, or you can take the risk of discovering your true nature and all the power that comes with it. You can keep chasing external validation and paying others to tell you who you are, or you can start today, digging into your own soul. The choice is yours, but remember, your soul will not stop whispering the truth just because you choose not to listen. So tell me in the comments, what was the most powerful insight you had while watching this video? What scared you the most about the awakening process? And most importantly, do you feel ready to begin the journey of remembering who you really are, even knowing there's no turning back? I want to know if you're one of those rare souls who prefers a painful truth over a comfortable lie. And if you've made it this far, it's because your soul is ready for more. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because in the next videos, I'll teach you the exact practical techniques to start the process of remembrance. I'll show you the specific exercises I use to access wisdom directly from the soul, how to distinguish the voice of the conditioned mind from the whispers of your essence, and how to navigate the inevitable pain that arises when you begin to remember who you truly are. But I only share these secrets with those who are truly committed to their own transformation. The question is, are you one of them?